Alright guys, welcome back to the Monthly Cup. We are at semi-finals and we have a match for you guys. We have Lou going up against I Win Again. Tell me a little bit about this matchup and the history of these two players.
Oh man, this is a good one. So back in the March Monthly Cup, these two faced off in the semifinals. Lou taking that one 3-0. Now he would go on to lose in the finals, taking second, but I Win Again would then go to the third place match, lose in the third place match, and that was when fourth didn't have a prize for it. And I Win Again he really took it to heart the way it went in losing that match, then losing in the third place. So definitely out for revenge here.
And if I remember correctly, during the I Win Again match and the Lou match of the previous time they met in the Monthly Cup, Lou was flexing his emote a little bit. He
definitely was
getting those emote muscles, some flexing, and I do believe it did affect I Win Again quite a bit. So we'll have to see how this matchup plays out. I do remember seeing I Win Again mentioned in Discord a little bit earlier. I'm scared to face Lou or something along those lines. So he is not looking forward to this.
It seems like he definitely thinks Lou might be his kryptonite here. We'll see if he can break that. I mean, it is only once they've played each other here, but it's just that it gets into your mindset, and it definitely seems like it did affect him there.
Before we go into the match, just take a look at how the bracket has progressed so far. We have R2R taking the bounty from Strudel, but falling to Lou in the round 3. R2R has been a very impressive player from Japan, so it's a shame to see him drop, but Lou is going to take his place in the semi-finals. Lizard dropping to I Win Again to meet Lou in the semi-finals. Sweetie taking Imperious Bounty. We just saw that intense game in the previous match. And S of Dawn beating Mino Caro, and Teddy beating Rizo. So those two guys are going to be playing. They played it out, and then S of Dawn went through to take on Sweetie. S of Dawn has played in quite a few Monthly Cups now and is a very active member of the community. So it's nice to see him finally take a semi-finals.
Yeah, and really kind of the first breakthrough. May and June lost both times in the first round, 2-3 in both of them. So you can kind of feel you're right on the cusp of it, and then lost in the second round in the July Monthly Cup. Now, interestingly enough, I was just looking at my notes here. It is Lou and Sweetie from the upper half of the bracket there, both coming through the God Rank qualifiers. I Win Again, ES of Dawn on the bottom half, both coming through qualifier number 1.
Interesting. Conspiracies, all sorts. But let's get into the games, guys. We're going to have Lou versus I Win Again. Take it away.
All right, so I have hit the ready up, and we will see what these players are starting with. Now, I Win Again, we know we already saw earlier, has that neutral rush with those red in it, but we're not actually sure what Lou is running. I caught a bit of the end of the Korean stream covering his quarterfinals match, but not sure what his opening deck is.
Yeah, I'm going to be curious if Lou's opted in to start with red, or if he chose to opt to start with yellow. Yellow, one of those more flexible decks. Usually you build regardless of what your opponent is in a similar fashion to your hand. But decides to open with red. I guess expecting people with rush to open with rush.
I mean, this could still be more of a rush coming out from Lou. Has the Axe Grinders in there, so you never really know. But it probably would lead more towards the combat or control style of red.
Yeah, I think normally when I spectate or talk to Lou and Sweetie and some of those other players from Equilibrium, they usually favor the control decks, which is why I would have looked more for it to be a red combat or red control list.
But Axe Grinder's always nice regardless of the style that you're playing. Getting them down on turn 1, get a really good collector going right away, really good stat line as well. Just going to need even 2 other creatures to come down, or that Ground Shaker is going to be really nice. The Axe Grinder going to be able to trade into the Crumbling Golem if Lou is able to get into the right position.
There is a thought of just mounting on the other side, drop the Axe Grinder, and then next turn you can play the Ground Shaker if you want to. And not only that, but it plays around Horsemaster, it plays around a couple other draws that you could expect that maybe I Win Again would have.
Yeah, and it does give you so many more options throughout the course of the game as well. When your lands are stuck on one side of the board, and especially if I win again was able to block them off with some prairies and get that Horsemaster in, then you end up in possibly a really awkward position where you get landlocked. But this just opens up so much more for Lou once he's able to stabilize on the defensive end to then push lands up the board and get even just one aggressive creature and start putting the pressure on I win again.
Yeah, and this is so unfortunate for I win again. I think you would be so happy to have a Flame Burst here, but with double Ciphers, it is a question of, do you just Mountain Forward, double Ciphers the 4/3 that's collecting to kill it off, and that way, you know, if you force your opponent to make the land to trade, you're okay with that. The worst thing is, if your Crumbling Golem dies before it even has a chance to hit face, I mean, you might even just say, I need to Horsemaster to hit face now so that I can get that 7 damage chunk in.
Yeah, and Horsemaster to hit face is really awkward as well, because then your Horsemaster is a space away from your own orb. And if your opponent playing red has a Cypher's Wrath of their own, and they're able to deal with the Crumbling Golem on the next turn, then you're in a really bad position. So does go for the double Ciphers onto the right side Axe Grinder instead, but really almost wanting that Crumbling Golem as more of a control, establish his setup on the right side, and then start pushing the aggression.
Yeah, and Boss is a great pickup for Lou now. Able to just drop the boss, and honestly, he could even look towards just +1 Faeria. Red often having these higher curves. He has Ground Shaker, Flame Burst in hand. It just looks really tempting to just play the boss in +1.
There's probably something also to be said for trying to get that Axe Grinder into double collection spot between the wells. It is vulnerable to a Flame Burst, so if you go for that and then your opponent has the Flame Burst, you get punished for it. But if you're able to get the Axe Grinder over there and have it survive, that extra Faeria can be absolutely game changing.
One thing for sure, you want to play the boss out of range of the Crumbling collecting and taking that trade. So even with Lou going for that mountain, it might just be because he wants to secure that as a Bomb Slinger spot. That way he can always Bomb Slinger Axe Grinders. So that could make sense for the mountain. It also lets you draw more, so that when you do find the Bomb Slingers, you can play it.
And it does deny that Axe Grinder spot from your opponent as well. Even if they're able to take the one directly above that mountain, that Axe Grinder is still, 2 turns away from hitting your orb, whereas the interior position that Lou just placed that mountain on, that Axe Grinder is hitting your face the next turn.
And this is so difficult for I win again now, because you want to take that value trade, but you also want to develop the Axe Grinder at the same time. Going for the Hunted Outlaw.
Yeah, this is actually really interesting the way that it's played out, because it is like I Win Again as a rush deck is playing more for control style and trying to deny what your opponent's able to do. But in this type of a start that he had, it was just the way he's really forced to play.
And slightly unfortunate for Lou, he's actually 1 Faeria shy of doing Horsemaster Ground Shaker to full clear by double landing, making the connecting charge line for Axe Grinder to hit the Outlaw, and then Ground Shaker to finish it off. But like I just mentioned, 1 Faeria shy. He could use the Flame Burst to do it, but at that point you gotta wonder, is it just better to play the Ground Shaker and pass?
Yeah, because once the Horsemaster comes down, it'll kill the Crumbling Golem. It's not like you need the Ground Shaker's 1 damage to do that, but you do need that 1 damage to kill the Hunted Outlaw. So could you do it? I guess it doesn't work either way. I was going to say, is there a way you could do it in an order where you kill the Hunted Outlaw to get the extra Faeria, but you do need both cards to kill the Outlaw?
I'm not sure what this mountain is going to accomplish unless he's playing something like a Captain or he's running Meteors. Ramping to 4 mountains is just a little bit surprising.
Yeah, it does go for the draw instead. Not sure exactly what he would have been looking for there, but Gift of Steel doesn't accomplish anything better, so Ground Shaker does come down and still does look like a very powerful creature that I Win Again is going to struggle to deal with unless he's able to pick up something like a Cypher's Wrath or a Flame Burst, which right now he isn't.
Yeah, so I Win Again now able to develop the Horsemaster on the opposite side of the Ground Shaker, get that trade, but it's not... Actually, he doesn't go for the trade. But like I just mentioned, it's not a value trade because the Axe Grinder gets way more value in killing off that Hunted Outlaw. And Lou actually able to just full clear the board here and develop very nice creatures, develop that Brigand.
Oh, Cypher's Wrath's even better.
And Cypher to boot. Now, if I Win Again develops any creature, he has to be in fear of Horsemaster on that Cypher to get the trade and grow. And with that previous thought of Lou thinking, do I make a mountain? I wonder if there is a grappling hook in this deck. Grappling hook with Cypher can just be so terrifying. If it shoots across, gets a kill, grows, and then moves beside the enemy orb, you can just get so many cheeky wins that way. So it's going to be a bit interesting if he is running grappling hook.
Yeah, and even in this position, you're a rush player generally means you have a little bit weaker creatures into these more mid-range creatures that are on the board. You're looking at 2 5/6s that I Win Again really doesn't have the creatures that can deal with that. You're just not going to be able to do it in this situation, especially if Cypher starts growing. So going to be, I mean, almost impossible for I Win Again to win from this stage of the game.
And just look at where I Win Again was forced to develop that Waryak. He has to put it just in such an awkward position, and hopefully, drag out Lou's creatures. Like if Lou plays the Horsemaster to get the trade here, he plays into Firestorm potentially. So maybe if I Win Again finds like an Imperial Drain and then waits another turn to get Firestorm value, that could be a line. But he's just so far behind in this situation.
Yeah, and double collecting for Lou as well. He's always had a creature on there, and as soon as that Horsemaster comes down, I Win Again, going for the forfeit, as he knows he will not be able to come back from that position.
Yeah, and just that call by both Sweetie and Lou now to have red as the opening deck to say, okay, if you guys play any rush deck, I'll just counter that with my opening deck.
So we'll have to see what I Win Again goes for as the response here. It just seemed like with what he started with, that was kind of the way he was forced to play it out instead of going so much more aggressive and going for the orb right away. And Lou just able to stabilize in time. We're going to see green coming out. I would expect that it's probably, the green-blue. We do see Triton Warriors, interesting add in there.
Yeah, Warrior makes me think it's going to be more of a blue-green mid-range deck rather than the ramp-style ones, running like Embrace, running Battletoads. I think we're going to see a lot more creatures with buffs.
It'll really depend how far into blue I Win Again's deck is, if he's running things like Frogifies or any transformation effects, because this Cap 10 can actually get a ton of value with the Gift of Steels.
But this is the problem. Captain is so interesting in red, but it's also a downside is that it's 4 lands, which means Lou unable to just explore mountain play it, whereas a boss or a brigand, any other type of creature, you would just develop and start collecting.
Yeah, and Lou just cycling through the cards there. You can see kind of the frustration in there of, I just wish I had a creature I could play right now. This is something that red sometimes does struggle with, is you sometimes just get draws like this where you don't have an early creature, and having the early creature for collection is so much better for this style of deck than having just tools to use later in the game.
I think it was also a question for Lou. He didn't want to indicate Bomb Slinger too much, so he probably frustrated flicked his hand to sort of allude to him having a bad hand. But if Lou had done Explore Mountain instead, it's very likely that I Win Again would have blocked the Bomb Slinger spot, but Lou now actually able very cleverly to get the Bomb Slinger spot by giving the illusion of a bad hand.
Yeah, and that is some of those mind games coming in, and I Win Again probably just frustrated again by that happening in that situation.
Now, the Horsemaster line, you have to think about it a lot as Lou, because Stalker is just such a huge punish if the opponent finds it. You do have cards like Groundshaker in your deck, so maybe you eventually get value. But if Stalker was played right above the Bomb Slinger, killing the Horsemaster, and then the 2/1 gets, the 2/1 gets the trade into the Bomb Slinger, it would just be so devastating.
Yeah, it would have been an incredible amount of value I Win Again could have pulled back. Now it does, again, like you said, leave it as a 2/1, so something like Groundshaker could pull value back for Lou, but really just depended on the draws there. And I Win Again now having all the elementals he could ever wish for in this opening hand.
There is a question for I Win Again if he wants to play the Wood Ellie to deny that one Faeria and trade into the Bomb Slinger, but opting not to go for it. He does deny any aggressive mountain near the orb of I Win Again.
Flameburst is a nice pickup now that I Win Again is committed more to the right side with that Wood Ellie. The Flameburst will be able to pick off the Water Ellie. Maybe we'll see Captain come down as well because Lou will be at that 4 mountain stage.
Yeah, and where Lou wants to develop the captain is a huge thought because you can play it on the right side by making a rightmost mountain, and try and contest the wood alley, setting up to go between the walls or any creatures developed aggressively, or you can put it on the top left, threaten Horsemaster lines to kill the wood alley, or take the axe grinder spot as the third option. And looks like after some consideration, he went for threatening Horsemaster more.
We actually see a Piper come out, so I wonder if I win again is running some of the enchantment cards in this deck as well, just running more of the blue-green enchant rather than the ramp to the tree. Not a ton of great lines here for I win again.
Yeah, I'm looking at I win against hand, and I'm like, okay, what would I do? Figaro to start off looks nice. Just make that lake underneath the prairie and, just choose that Urn of Gabriel, get the cycling going. Maybe you find feed, maybe you can feed and then play a frog tosser. Either way, I think you have to look for that cycle.
If you were to go for a couple turn play, just because Lou isn't going to hit the orb this turn, he's going to be setting up something next turn. Something like putting the Wood Ellie in between the wells and just passing for this turn, I win again would go to 7, 8, 11 next turn, so I guess it's still not good enough. I was thinking something along the lines of Fugaro and taking the Medallion, because that may be what he's looking to do with this style of deck with the Pipers in there, is get a big buffed creature and then Medallion so that you have a ton of big taunts around. But
Lou, without finding Horsemaster, I guess he's going for the aggressive mountain rather than going for the draw. Now, it's not like the draw would be huge because he can't get the captain to hit face or hit into any creature if he draws. But still, just developing another, combat creature seems just so strong.
Yeah, Groundshaker would have still been good there. You deal kind of enough damage, 1 damage to 2 of the creatures. It also sets it up to trade with the captain, but I'm actually surprised that Lou went for the draw instead of going for the Groundshaker there, but Underground Boss find off the top is almost just as good because you can play the Gift of Steels with it as well.
Yeah, and I went again picked up Azure Skywell, so one of those late game ramp cards that you usually saw in the blue-green, not so much after the nerf, and he's making the call with Pipers that he can just all in with it and try and keep it alive, and I think that's actually really cool to see the teched Pipers to buff up Azure Skywells.
Just seeing it in hand, actually, with the Fugaro there, it makes me think of if you used even something like the Sky Whale or the Balloonfish we saw in a couple of decks earlier, if you used it and swallowed one of your own creatures, and then you used Ulani's Medallion, would each of your creatures have the swallowed of your other creature inside?
I have never tested that, actually, so I'm not really sure the answer to that. I'd imagine so, right?
I'm sure somebody out there has done the science on it, or they will now hear us talking about it, and somebody's going to try to figure this out, because that could be a lot of value of creatures onto the board.
Definitely. In terms of Lou's lines, though, Groundshaker setting up Firestorm to be a huge clear looks very tempting. He could even Groundshaker in front of his orb to try and do a block.
Drawing instead of even just pushing that 4 damage with the Bomb Slinger this turn. I guess you don't want the Bomb Slinger to die just for free to the Wood Ellie, but at some point you have to become a little more aggressive against a deck like this that is so greedy.
Especially because you have to worry, what if they're running Tree? Like if I win again just makes a special land, moves away from Lou's creatures, and then next turn drops a Tree of Everlife, the amount of value you can get from that card in this matchup is through the roof, because Stalkers become this like 9/11 monstrosity that can, instantly kill off a creature and stay as a huge monster to fight off the other ones.
Yeah, and especially with the way that the creatures are currently set up. I mean, Lou owns the left side. I Win Again owns the right side. So he would actually have creatures set up in a good enough position to put the tree over on the right side and defend it well. So you really have to consider that as Lou of when do you need to become more aggressive than you currently are being.
Now, of course, we can see I Win Again doesn't have Tree in hand. Unclear if he's running it in his deck so far. One of the lines I see to go for is just make the land for Wood Ellie to double collect, play for Goro, choose the urn, and draw. Again, looking for the feed to feed on for Goro, just to cycle through your deck more, try and find some value cards. Notably, he hasn't played any Frog Tossers yet. Frog Tosser at one point would have been really great on the Horsemaster.
I was actually thinking in that situation, I wonder if trading the Sky Whale away into the Ground Shaker would have been good enough there, because then you leave Cap 10 over an open space, and you essentially force Lou to make a land there instead of drawing, or instead of going for like a +1 Faeria that he might need. It might have been something that was worth considering, but obviously didn't go for it in that stage. And now, like you had called a couple turns ago, it was Ground Shaker into what looks to be a giant Firestorm.
I'm actually surprised that Lou just went for the Bomb Slinger to hit in rather than the Horsemaster. Horsemaster now would have let Lou go face for 4 damage. I guess he's just not prioritizing damage to the orb at all in this matchup. Maybe a read on the fact that he doesn't think he's playing Tree of Everlife. Maybe he thinks it's more of a mid-range deck with the Skywells.
Yeah, and maybe even just thinking if he has good enough board position, creatures in, every spot available, tree isn't going to be that impactful anyway. He should have something in a good enough spot to kill off the tree right away, but now I win again, really just has to reset. Looks like it's going to be, I guess, Fugaro into Urn, and you just have to redevelop a creature onto the right side. It's so important for I win again to get a creature to survive at this stage of the game.
Now, I win again, if he's running it, would be looking for libraries. If you earn into a library and you can play it, Lou has to find either a Horsemaster or a Flameburst in order to deal with it.
And now seeing Elderwood Embraces and Runan's Guidance, a lot of those green buffs, that leads me to think that I win again probably isn't playing libraries.
Yeah, I have to agree with your assessment, and Lou also, must be thinking that by using the Bomb Slinger not to go face, instead value trade.
Picking up a Cypher's Wrath doesn't do anything in this situation. Lou actually has a difficult decision right now, because stepping a Horsemaster... Oh no, he actually is going to be able to double collect, so he's going to Ground Shaker either way this turn. And picking up the Flameburst, you now just kill off Fugaro, so you can just deny that your opponent gets any collection this turn.
Yeah, denying the double collection is so huge. One of the only reasons why you keep Flameburst and not use it as removal is if you do think they're playing tree, and you can get like a Bomb Slinger Flameburst to kill off the tree or something like that, you would keep the Flameburst. But with what I win against been playing, you have to think it's just a blue-green mid-range with buffs.
Yeah, definitely is looking that way. I'm actually very surprised that it's running as much ramp as it is, if it's more of the mid-range style, because I guess you are still ramping towards Sky Whales, but you're not ramping, towards the tree that we've been talking about as much or as quickly towards libraries like we've been talking about, so...
You probably don't double gift here, but it'd be so interesting just to see that be a 2-turn clock. I guess just one gift threatens lethal next turn by having the Flameburst and gift in hand. Can even drop the Axe Grinder if he wants to.
Yeah, isn't really a need to reset. In this situation, you don't think that your opponent's going to have enough, even with the 6/6 Triton on the side there. It's just, they can collect this turn, but I'm going to finish you next turn, so...
I win
see
again
another
now.
creature come down. Yeah, we will see the Axe Grinder just because it is the most damage.
Yeah, I win again's going to be able to read into the fact that Lou's got at least one gift in hand, so a lot of damage at his orb.
I mean, there is guaranteed lethal just with the creatures that are currently on board, so... Crystal Flower does maybe pull Cap 10 away, but it won't be enough just because we see all the extra damage that Lou has in hand, but... is there anything better that I win again can do for this turn?
The only thing I can think of is if he drew into a Feed the Forest and then played a Tree of Everlife. That's the only line I can see that makes I win again able to win in this position. Without that possibility, I just look at him dying over the next couple turns, even if Lou didn't have lethal set up.
Yeah, and we're halfway through the deck here for I win again, so... having seen some of these more buffs, some of the more mid-range creatures and cards come out, I'm almost wondering if he's not even running the Faeria burst combo of Living Will of Feed the Forest.
Yeah, and I went against just going to concede there, recognizing that he would just have no chance to come back into the game without the tree, which probably wasn't in the deck.
Yeah, didn't look like it at that stage. Yeah, now who knows really? But so now having seen the neutral rush that I went for had those red cards in it, so I wouldn't expect to see a red coming out, and the blue green, we're probably going to see a yellow here from I Win Again as his final deck.
Yeah, and from what I've seen from I Win Again on ladder, he favors the yellow rush deck, so I would have expected that, but I'm actually a bit wrong there with my prediction. Fnatic and Outland Ranger tells me it's more of a tempo deck.
And he gets both back right away.
Now,
Good start for Lou here as well. The Underground Boss, unless I Win Again is running those Choking Sands teched in, which you guys were discussing in the earlier match there, it's going to be really difficult for I Win Again to deal with the value that can provide.
this has always been a close matchup between the yellow control-ish deck and the red combat deck, because there's so many different tech cards that players can run and so many different ways to play the matchup where you can get advantages and get ahead. If I win against running the demons, those line up as really nice creatures to be fighting against the red cards, especially demon killing bosses. But if I win against is not running the demons, he might just have all his creatures get ciphered off or flame burst off. That said, if Colossus is an I Win Against deck, Colossus could be a 5 Faeria 7/7 dash to potentially get value.
Yeah, we do see the emote coming out there from I Win Again, usually in a matchup like this, whether when you're facing red or yellow. Even when you're facing green now, you have to consider it. Playing an Outland Ranger and not using that Campfire means it's weak to all of these smaller removals, like the Cypher's Wrath that we see in Lou's hand. Now, he does kind of have a bit of a difficult decision because you want to get that Underground Boss down, but it looks like he is going to go for the boss instead.
I think I Win Again just bamboozled Lou. There's a lot of mind game there to Lou saying, oh, you're not collecting. Okay, I'll just play the boss. I don't have to Cypher's Wrath. I think I Win Again successfully baited out the boss and let his creature collect by dropping it in front of his orb and saying that was a mistake. I think that was a really nifty play by a Win Again.
Coming out. Very interesting there. Picking up the Flame Burst as well, Lou can clear both these creatures, but I mean, in that situation, does that mean you think the Outland Ranger has really done its job of that single collection?
Yeah, I Win Again, basically draw a card, and it's a 3 Faeria 3/2, so pretty strong body at that as well.
Double Wind Soldier could clear off the boss here, but not quite as efficient as you'd like, and the Last Nightmare can't be played yet, so just going to be a pass from I Win Again. That puts Lou back in a better position here because he's going to now have the Horsemaster for that extra movement.
Yeah, and as I Win Again, you're just hoping to find Choking Sands if you're running it, or, you know, develop a Charger and have Charger survive hitting into it. Emissary is an interesting pickup.
Emissary is very interesting here, so that probably means I Win Again's either running Nats, so that you always have that flyer on the board, or maybe he's just running something like Training, because that gives the flying, and that'll give the synergy with the Templar there. Or sorry, the Emissary.
Yeah, it's going to lead me at least into thinking he's running triple Training. Maybe he's also running Demon Wing as a 5/2, though that's not as likely. A bit interesting from Lou, though, that he doesn't Mountain to block the double collection from I Win Again.
And another Emissary comes out, so that actually allows the clear onto the Underground Boss. Value's really nice, and the Wind Soldier is going to line up really nicely to kill off the Horsemaster. So I Win Again looking to be in a really good position here.
Yeah, this is actually huge because Lou pushed into the enemy lands wanting to contest Chargers. He's now made the lands for Wind Soldier, which means I Win Again can Wind Soldier, kill the 3/2, +1, drop another Emissary, and then his other Emissary can value trade into the boss.
Yeah, it looks like he's debating something at this stage. I guess you could go for Windborn Emissary and have played the Campfire on the Emissary that's currently on the board and then had it survive against the boss, but this just looks like it lines up so beautifully.
Yeah, I think that was exactly what he was considering, but then you have to think about, okay, what about Ground Shakers? What about Cypher's Wrath? Do I really want to do that? And I think he made the right call with just going for the second Emissary with the Wind Soldier.
And Lou does have the Fairy here to play a Ground Shaker that's going to be really strong in this position. Also had the ability there possibly just to double neutral straight across and try to get the Axe Grinder position next turn with a really good aggressive mountain, but drawing the Underground Brigand and hovering it means he's considering Brigand Gift of Steel this turn rather than Ground Shaker. Or maybe just the Brigand as a bait to then get a really nice clear with Ground Shaker next turn.
Yeah, Lou going for the draws a lot here instead of trying to stop the double collection, and I'm wondering if Lou is just now giving the ability for I Win Again just to keep getting these advantages. Now we can see I Win Again with Wind Soldier in hand would have the collection available to him anyway, with Wind Soldier hidden with Emissary, hidden with Wind Soldier.
Yeah, and in these positions, I mean, the lands look kind of awkward with the way that Lou has his mountains, in that you always want to deny at least one from the Wind Soldier. Generally, the yellow player has a desert right on their own well, so they're going to get the value from that collection, but whenever Wind Soldier is able to collect, like it would be if it went straight down to kill the Brigand here, that value is always so huge, but going to clear the Brigand with the Emissary instead.
And now it's going to be, does I
Jeez.
Win Again make the heads-up decision to Campfire, or does he just Air Rally?
You still could play both.
Yeah.
It's really dependent on what you think you need to play around here. Because Campfire and the Air Rally, you're considering, okay, if my opponent has Firestorm, I lose to that. Not Campfiring, you lose to Ground Shaker. Campfiring, maybe you lose to Cypher's Wrath. So really just depends what I Win Again thought the most likely scenario would be there, and does go for the Campfire, properly playing around the Ground Shaker here.
Yeah, but Bomb Slinger Pickup is going to get value and put Lou back into this game. I Win Again, having already used 2 Wind Soldiers, makes it unlikely for him to find the third. Soul Drain, though, would be a great pickup.
Yeah, it would be really nice here. It's possibly a situation where you just go for a +1 Faeria, because if you don't draw into anything better, you're playing Air Elemental anyway. So then you have to consider, what is my play next turn? And if he thinks that maybe next turn he'd be needing that Last Nightmare, then you go for the +1 and try to set that up. But now drawing into the Charger, I think, is much better than the Air Elemental.
Yeah, you definitely want something sticky to the board, and Lou doesn't have the ability to threaten Bomb Slinger on it anyway, so it's a pretty nice line. Lou could +1 and play both Horse Masters just as ways of having more creatures stay on the board to collect.
Yeah, it looks like he is going to at least play the 1, try to get that aggressive mountain, or just an aggressive prairie. I would think the mountain, just because then it sets up your Axe Grinders really nice later on, but maybe he just wants to develop the prairies because that allows him to get a Horse Master in between the wells instead of, stuck back by his own orb.
I think Lou's thinking of only playing 1, and then having the Ground Shaker next turn as an option, so he wants to bait that Charger to do the trade, but no, actually he is going to go for both.
Yeah, we'll have to see if I Win Again can pick up something like a Soul Drain that he can get some extra value here. Currently, all the creatures look like they're going to be okay at eventually taking out this Charger. Windward Champion picked up, so this is really more of a control archetype coming out from my Win Again rather than something like the Events Tempo deck that we've been used to seeing.
I don't know. Okay, so I Win Again tries to keep the 2/4 out of reach to try and play around just getting multiple collections, but he sets up a 4 Faeria cost card next to Horsemaster to value trade, so a bit of value loss there.
Yeah, picking up the second Ground Shaker means you probably are forced to go for a +1 and play the Ground Shaker. It's just not worth drawing if you don't draw into something that you can play here, so I would definitely expect that we see that coming out from Lou.
Where you put it is also interesting. Do you play around him having training with a Flashwind? Do you play around him just coming back to the other side, maybe with the Soul Drain and Fnatic? You Soul Drain the 3/2, then use the Fnatic to trade into the 4/1.
Ooh, we're going to actually see Champion bring that Charger back instead of going for the Last Nightmare just to clear Ground Shaker that turn. And yeah, I think it is very interesting the way that Lou played that to bring the Ground Shaker back defensively, because he is recognizing that if this Charger survives, or really if any creatures survive on the left side for I Win Again, that is a way back into the game, because Lou has his creatures set up on the right, and especially if he reinforced that with the Ground Shaker, there's really no way that I Win Again would have been able to take any control over the right side, but the left side was exposed, so he has to start switching some of his forces over, and that's exactly what he went for in that situation.
Yeah, and I think the line that it just looked so tempting to go for is just developing the Cypher, doing the double land to get that triple collection in. But it's going to play into I Win Again's Last Nightmare Flashman very nicely. I Win Again able to... Can he Quadra collect with Fnatic and Flashman? I guess he can Quadra collect. Can you afford Last Nightmare as well as the Fnatic? I think you can.
Yeah, Last Nightmare is going to come down. It does look like if that's the play that he's going to go for, he needs to do all of the movement first, and then Last Nightmare last. But in this type of a situation, it looks like he's going to go for the Last Nightmare. I'm actually surprised that he went for that, because I think you could have also played the Outland Ranger in the Campfire and just had the Windborn Champion clear off the Cypher, maybe even Flash Wind it, then back away and killed the Ground Shaker with the Charger here, but...
I think my favorite line was using the Fnatic Flash Wind to Quadra collect and then Last Nightmare. With the line you're talking about with the Outland Ranger Campfire to keep the champion alive at 1 life, it's just so vulnerable to... We haven't seen any Cypher's Wrath, and then Ground Shaker is huge. Actually, sorry, we saw 1 Cypher's Wrath. But it would just be so vulnerable to Ground Shaker.
Yeah, that is a really good point as well. But really debating on what this champion's going to do. Looks like it's going to hit and then fly back out and get that extra value onto the Charger there to clear off the Ground Shaker. But, you know, that's a movement used in a spot where the champion here isn't in a great collection spot, and that's going to need another movement trick from I Win Again next turn in order to get this collection going.
Yeah, and I'm curious if Lou now is just going to be +1 in each turn. Goes for the draw. Double Firestorm in Lou's hand. Now, I think red combat decks have normally only been running 1, so this might be a meta call saying, okay, everyone's playing elementals, like water elementals. Some people are starting to tech in air alleys now for Yellow Rush. Maybe I can just get Firestorm to line up and kill all of these elementals as well as the additional units summoned in.
And sometimes it is a case of running like 1 Firestorm, 1 Garridan. And if you think your deck is getting too heavy on the curve, then you can't run Garridan, so you put in another Firestorm. So it does look like that's the way that Lou has leaned towards here. He's just gonna go for a straight trade of the Bomb Slinger with the champion.
Now it does set up double collecting to your opponent's mono collecting. However, Lou is just so far ahead in Faeria that if he found a Cyphers, a Flame Burst, anything really would just put him ahead.
Yeah, and does pick up that Flame Burst. Could also go for the Brigand as well and try to get extra value that way. But just the Flame Burst of, you know, cutting off your opponent's collection before they're even able to do anything next turn. Playing the creature looks like it's going to trade very well, but just denying that collection is so much more important.
Yeah, I mean, Flame Burst also has a lot of targets that you want it to hit. Manta Riders, demons after they've been pinged by a Ground Shaker. If you Firestorm, you want it to finish off a creature like a champion. So you might just be making the call that, okay, I need to keep my hand removal.
And I Win Again in a position, picks up another champion here. He could maybe set that up back onto the left side, but double collecting... Or could even champion to get a hit to face in. Looks like it would put the Fnatic in a more protected position than, you know, out of range of the Brigand here. Not going to go for that, though. I mean, everything... to me, looks like it's just playing right into Firestorm next turn.
Yeah, I thought this is what he was going to do for. So pull the Fnatic back, get the double collection, take the trade, set up champion to go face, and Lou with the perfect answer being Flame Burst Cypher's Wrath can actually kill it off, but I think I Win Again was just hoping to get Poke as his win condition.
I mean, we're 2/3 through the deck here. Lou sitting on 10 cards. I Win Again on 11, so he's going to draw to that 10th card next turn. Both of these players have to really be considering what is left in their decks, what's left in their opponent's decks to find what is their win condition before we hit fatigue, because currently Lou is actually a little bit behind in terms of the life total, but he does have the flame bursts. And I believe he's used 2 flame bursts now. I might be wrong on that. That might have been the first flame burst that he used, and he only has 1 left as the catch-up. But it is something that you have to consider at this stage of the game.
Yeah, you have to be thinking as Lou, when am I going to get Firestorm value in this matchup if I kill his creature turn after turn? And so maybe he was just saying it might be worth holding on to Flameburst Ciphers, and when the opponent plays another card next turn, get that Firestorm value.
Another Ground Shaker picked up, another big body. It looks really nice for Lou in this spot, but I mean, if you had another Cypher's Wrath, it'd be perfect to Flameburst Cypher's Wrath again and continue to deny your opponent from having any creatures stick on the board, but it's really tough in this situation for both players of trying to continue to deny what the other is doing.
Yeah, I think as Lou, I would just want to draw a card and then Flameburst the 5/3 and pass. That Outland Ranger Campfire, being able to threaten off a Ground Shaker, like, Lou has to think, has the opponent played any trainings? I don't think we've seen training yet.
No, I don't believe we have either.
Training on Manta is 6 damage, which I think Lou would be thinking about. Decides not to play around it, though.
Another Wind Soldier doesn't accomplish anything in this situation. This to me looks instantly like Outland Ranger Campfire. Whether that means you're going to go for a +1 Faeria to set something big up next turn or drawing into something else this turn. It just looks so nice to line up that Ranger and have the Manta Rider kill off the Ground Shaker here.
Is there
Ground
a
Shaker
line
on the left is just so massive for Lou right now. The fact that he's got that double collection consistent every single turn is going to be huge throughout the late game here.
I was just wondering if you could Quadra collect and get the champion out. Wind Soldier just to hit into the 5/6 preemptively, then play champion after collecting with the Manta and pull it back, but just slightly shy on Faeria, I think. No, actually, you can do that. So Manta collects, you Wind Soldier to double collect on the left side, hit in, and then you +1 Manta pull back, or +1 champion pull back your Manta.
Is going to go for the Outland Ranger play instead here. And this is possibly where Lou goes, okay, this is the best value I'm going to get from Firestorm, and he might just play that right now.
Yeah, this for sure looks like what Lou was setting up. Just +1 Firestorm, kill off the enemy creatures. Only slightly ahead, though, I think, with the current board state, because I Win Again is on 5 Faeria. But the nice thing is, Lou next turn can just step and get that aggressive Mountain for Axe Grinder.
Yeah, that'll be really nice. Start putting on some aggression, if that's what he wants to go for. Because, again, he could just step back and continue to double collect if he thinks he's that far ahead. Doesn't have any other options to go for, something like Axe Grinder and Flame Burst this turn. Could +1 and play the Axe Grinder either defensively in the bottom right or right up by the Manta Rider there, but it just doesn't really line up well when you can get it into a more aggressive position later on. Is Underground Boss the play instead and just accept that the Manta Rider is going to clear with it?
Yeah, you also got to be considering what can he do with champion. Can he go face and then retreat, and then set up like a potential lethal? A lot of things for Lou to be considering here, and I think boss is the favored line for me.
The big thing for me at this stage is we are getting so late into the game that Flame Burst, at least to me looking at it, keeps getting more and more value every single turn by keeping it for orb damage rather than using it on a creature, because that puts you ahead in the fatigue battle if it gets to that stage. So using something like the Underground Boss here and just accepting that the 2 creatures are going to trade and you'll get that Faeria back, it just looks better in that spot than going for the Flame Burst there. It's just so tough at this point when you're looking at, I have only a limited number of options left in my deck.
Now this looks really tempting to me. You can just Manta, fly across the map, Soul Drain the 5/6, plus, well, you have to +1 champion first, get that collection, and kill the Ground Shaker with the Soul Drain.
Yeah, that looks really nice, and that's going to completely flip the board, where I Win Again then controls the left side, and Lou is stuck just single collecting with the boss on the right. It looks like a really big swing of momentum here. Now, Firestorm, Flameburst, in maybe the next turn looks very good, but you really want something else to get onto the board, even just an Underground Brigand. If it ends up being cleared off by the champion, so be it, because you're going to Firestorm anyway, but you really don't want to go for draws at this stage. You feel so far behind when you get 2 cards ahead, or when you get 3 cards ahead in the fatigue battle.
Yeah, going for this buffed Axe Grinder play looks very strong for Lou, because you don't want to be drawing. You don't want to be +1ing anymore. You want to get that value out of each Ground Shaker.
Yeah, and that does actually set up a really nice mountain position for a Bomb Slinger if he's running 3. I think we saw 2 so far. Maybe it was only 1 off the start, but it would just depend on how many Lou is running, whether he needs that mountain position for a Bomb Slinger to be good later on onto, whatever the creature ends up being.
And it is going to be a thought afterwards if I win again, plays an additional creature, whether he just tries to go all in on face. I win again could fly across afterwards, kill the boss, hit face with the Manta, and just play a Manta Rider in the top right well.
Outland Ranger picked up. Now, Outland Ranger does allow I win again to go for Wind Soldier and buff it with the campfire, but it doesn't look like he's going to have enough Faeria to do all of that, because the Wind Soldier won't be collecting. If both of these creatures were on the right side and he had collected from that side and could pick up extra Faeria with the Wind Soldier on the left, then that's a line you can go for. But actually, +1 goes to 7 if he flies right across, right? So he could go for that line.
The other thought is, do you want to campfire your champion to... Well, I guess you're not too worried about Cypher's Wrath in comparison to Flameburst. You're more considering Firestorm anyway.
Yeah, and that's, again, depends on how many you think your opponent is running. If you think they're running just a 1-of and they've already used that Firestorm, or whether you think they're running 2 or really greedy 3 copies. But you're at least considering whether you just trade off the Manta and Wind Soldier. Because really, if this is the play that I win again goes for of Wind Soldier,
he might just be looking at face and develop the Manta aggressively. It would play into Firestorm, but maybe you just say, okay, you've played your Firestorm, I'm going to say you only run 1, play that Manta aggressively, and just hope to set up lethal.
And that looks like that is what he's going to go for. The Manta Rider comes down, and when we were midway through this game looking at that kind of 15 cards in the deck position, these Firestorms in Lou's hand looked like they were never going to get that much value just because of the board state. And Lou has picked up 2 actually beautiful Firestorm plays of the amount of value that he's got. And the Flameburst is going to come down as well and just completely clear the board.
Yeah, and Lou actually picking up Captain now, going to get rewarded for all of the mountains he's made, able to play that next turn.
Wind Soldier now in a position where it can double collect as part of the process here, but Kaleem actually picked up an I Win Against hand. I'm surprised that he made the decision this quickly, because that looked like a position where you could have maybe waited and thought through how Kaleem would play out over the end game here.
Same for Lou. I think I would think about this turn as well, because the Cap 10 looks so tempting to stop that Outland Ranger from double collecting.
Yeah, Outland Ranger going to pick up that double collection. Then that'll give I Win Again the option again, whether he wants to go for a Kaleem, whether he wants to go for that Windstorm Charger. With only 4 cards left in the deck, you really have to consider how many events you have left for how much value that Charger can get. So goes for the Kaleem instead here.
And, interesting, with where that Kaleem is, oh no, Horsemaster could have actually hit. So Horsemaster Gift could have been a line, because you can double land from the mountain in the top right spot and double land towards the Kaleem.
Yeah, would have been able to find that line. I guess wouldn't have had enough Faeria to go for something like a Ground Shaker instead. If he's got one left. I think we may have seen all the Ground Shakers as well.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think we've seen all 3 Ground Shakers.
Really interesting to see what the last cards are here. And this is a position where Lou could actually go for, if he thinks he's that far behind in terms of the current life totals, in terms of fatigue, that he can't let Kaleem hit face here, he may be considering Mountain right in front of his own orb, and he has to play Captain and Underground Brigand just to body block.
Now, Captain's actually going to be a blessing and a curse depending on what Lou draws. If it pulls a card from your deck, it will make you closer to fatigue. But if you draw the Gift of Steel and then you hit into combat, it'll add a Gift of Steel into your deck. So it could both play into fatigue and play around fatigue, depending on what Lou's draws are.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting the way that that comes down. That's a great point there. It could actually extend the way that Lou is able to play this out. Not only if he gets one combat trigger, but then if he's able to Gift of Steel Captain and put more Gift of Steels into his deck.
Yeah, potentially infinitely putting Gift in your deck, so long as I Win Again provides the creatures to hit into.
Another Air Elemental picked up doesn't, quite do it here for I Win Again. Now he can put it back up in the top left corner and it'll contest the Axe Grinder, but not really what you wanted to see in that situation. But I guess the best draw would have been Last Nightmare.
Oh, he went for the draw. I guess he was hoping to find a choking or find a movement trick like Flashwind to hit face, because every point of damage now matters so much for the fatigue, but by drawing, you've just accelerated how fast you die to fatigue.
Now, a big thing is that it is a soul drain. So even though you'll now be a card, so 1 damage further into fatigue, Soul Drain is a card that exists for I Win Again. I believe that's his last copy. Did he just... I should do this in the right order. And he will heal too, so he'll be that much more ahead in life total. So currently a 6 damage difference between the two players means that there are 3 extra cards worth of fatigue that I Win Again is ahead, even though he is 1 card ahead. And the Gift of Steel is picked up, so Captain will put an extra card into Lou's deck. That is exactly what he was looking for in this situation, exactly the way you were describing it. Oh, I'm sad there's no animation for that.
Yeah, I was waiting to see the animation, but I guess there isn't any currently. You're actually in a difficult spot now because you want to gift the Brigand, but I think you're forced to gift the Captain. But if he has Last Nightmare Flashwind, you might just be out of the game.
I think you still have to Gift of Steel the Brigand. That's so tough, yeah.
Now,
yeah, there's... Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Well, actually, I'll let you go over your point first, because I want to talk about fatigue afterwards.
I was going to say, is this a situation where you double neutral to surround that aggressive desert? You're going to step the Brigand over anyway, just because you have to block that desert from something like a Wind Soldier, if there is one left and I Win Against deck here. But do you think you're in a position as Lou where you have to try to block those lands as much as possible to deny Wind Soldier lines?
Yeah, it's definitely a hard decision. I think we've seen we definitely at least 2 Wind Soldiers, but I think we've seen all 3, unless I'm mistaken. But here's an interesting note.
Flashwind.
So it depends on who's taking ticks first, but it also depends on how many ticks have been taken, because it might not just be 1 damage that I Win Against taking from that draw. It might just mean an additional tick where it's at the point where you take like 6 damage.
Yeah.
You know, that one card could actually make the difference between the life totals.
This is so difficult right now, because if I Win Again's last card is a Last Nightmare, it is so good to go for the draw. But he really needs to know what that last card is to go for the draw here. Otherwise, you have to just let it play out. If it's something like another Charger, another Fanatic, just any creature, you have to let it play out naturally. If it was a Last Nightmare, you needed to go for the draw. And by him pulling back, I think this is I Win Again saying, I need the combo in the right way to be able to line up, a Flash Wind, big burst of damage with this Charger.
We haven't seen training from I Win Again at all, right?
No, I don't believe we have.
I wonder if it's just a one-of that he has, or if he runs them all. And Bomb Slinger is huge.
Absolutely massive at this stage to clear off that Charger, which looked like it was, the hope for I Win Again. Now, very interesting, I Win Again went for moving the Charger back in front of his own orb, and then played a Prairie up in the top left corner, which would have been a perfect position to move the Charger to and actually protect it. And now you're in a position where I don't think there's a way that Lou can lose. I think that getting that Bomb Slinger, it now contests whatever creature I Win Again plays. He's not going to get the Charger in a protected enough position, and there's just no way right now for I Win Again to actually get extra damage in before Lou is, able to at least deal 1 damage to the face and get some creature going here.
Not only that, but I Win Again's going to have the knowledge that Lou's got Gift of Steals. In fact, he knows there's at least 3 that Lou could have. And Gift of Steel on that Brigand, stepping up. I Win Again's got 1 card. Unless it's Last Nightmare, there's no way Lou's getting punished for preemptive gift.
I feel like you have to know that it's Flashwind. Because, or a Fanatic. I think that at this stage you know that it's a movement, because if it was something like a Last Nightmare, I think it would have been played. If it was something like another creature, especially with I Win Again just flooding creatures out hoping to do something, it looks like, I feel like you kind of have to know what that card is as Lou, and you have to feel like you're in a really good position.
This is where card counting matters so much, because as Lou, if you know your last card, Cypher's Wrath, if you know your last card's Bomb Slinger, it makes such a difference in this matchup, especially if it's Horsemaster, because if you can suddenly go face next turn and add another gift to your hand, it matters a ton.
This is actually huge in terms of the way the game's going to play out, though. I Win Again is able to deal 4 damage here. Is it going to be enough in the Fatigue War? Or is it just too late?
Not only does it deal 4 damage, but it also stops Lou from walking aggressive with that Brigand. The Brigand's going to have to backstep 1 turn.
And the Ranger just moves to a position where it'll probably body block at some point. Wrath is really nice.
This... 1, 2, 3 is 6 damage, so it's 4 turns of fatigue for Lou. I think Lou's going to be able to do this.
Yeah, Lou is going to be able to get at least the 1 Gift of Steel, but he's also going to get the combat trigger from Cap 10, and that will slow down the fatigue and gain extra damage from the extra gift. So that is, after really a marathon game here, going to be the game going to Lou.
And it's so interesting. You can see the fact that Captain's going to provide the infinite card to your deck.
Absolutely massive. Really interesting play from both players. I mean, that game, I felt like it was so, the minuscule details of each clear were so impactful through the whole series. It's just unbelievable after that game to kind of process it. And that's as a spectator. I can't imagine how those players are feeling.
Yeah, just the amount of tracking you have to do. But yeah, let's go ahead and throw this back to the desk.
Well, that was the game. That was a very interesting last match. I can't quite remember the first 2 games after watching that one, but I can remember the last game quite well because I was very curious on how both players were playing. Lou made some very strange lines to me personally, where he took he drew cards instead of body blocking collectors with bigger creatures. Or just playing a guy and making more land. Like, I don't know, there was a few turns when Lou made, especially in the early game, I was just like, why are you just throwing brigands around, to die? Like, if there's a campfire here, he gets value. I don't know, it was an odd match with a very odd conclusion.
It was such a struggle for both players of trying to establish one side and the other. And then I Win Again because you have things like the extra movement, the champions there trying to switch pressure back to the other side. And then, I mean, like I said in there, it looked like Lou had these Firestorms that just weren't going to get any value in the mid game. And then really out of nowhere found these absolutely massive value Firestorms into the late game. And then, I mean, how can you argue with the value that Cap 10 provided?
Yeah, It was just a very strange match. I don't know if fatigue was in there, or maybe some alternate game plan we didn't know about, but there was definitely a lot of like missed opportunities of stopping a collector. Like there was a line where the Outland Ranger came down on the double collection, and all you had to do was chuck Captain in between. And how after all those Wind Soldiers used, like, it would be a nightmare or a Choking Sands to take it out. But it just looked perfect. You know, drop that Captain, start getting value from it early, start shuffling these gifts into your deck. But then he went for, like, the Axe Grind on the opposite side, and I felt like you're kind of giving Yellow Tempo a lot of breathing room there, which is something you don't want to do, right? So it's
and there was situations where he could have gone for clears and maybe overvaluing the flame burst, but even I was saying how valuable the flame burst was going to be, getting closer and closer to fatigue. Just that extra burst damage to the face is always important when you're in such a tight matchup. And I mean, even opening up Wind Soldier lines certain times, and times you could have switched the board or stayed on one side. Yeah, it was a lot of interesting decisions by the players, but, you know, obviously worked out for Lou in the end.
Well, Lou didn't have that much to lose, to be honest. If Lou had just lost that match, he could have shrugged it off and played his other two decks. I would again. That was intense. I was like, I need to win this game. I have no choice. Lou's just said, like, yeah, I'll just do this. Yeah, I'll just do this. It doesn't matter. I just counter pick him on the next game. But I would again, of course, this was a very important match for him. He still had 2 more games to win straight after that. So I guess in a way, Lou's slow play in that game actually helps him win the series in the long term. If he can exhaust I Win Again in one match, and then he knows I Win Again has to play 2 more matches where he's like, oh, I need to win this one as well. Like, Lou will just win the series through fatigue, literal fatigue. Like, I Win Again will just collapse.
Yeah, and even in terms of getting that information as well, you're getting every single card worth of knowledge as well, even if you lose that game. So pushing it further and further towards seeing the full deck still benefits Lou if he had to have gone on and lost that game.
Yeah, but a 3-0 victory for Lou. Very convincing there. Knocking I Win Again into the 3rd place match. Unfortunately, I Win Again couldn't smite his demons this time.
We'll have to see if he can, break the curse of the 3rd place match for him as well. But apparently we are the 3-0, curse today. We've only seen one game 4 throughout the course of all the series so far.
Yeah, we've had a lot of 3-0 so far. It looks like Yellow/Red Rush, or the neutral rush we saw earlier, and Red Combat being the dominant decks of this tournament so far. Red Combat kind of just can kind of win most games in the meta now, I think. It does good against Blue-Green because it just accelerates so quickly at one side and applies so much pressure and uses so much removal. It's hard for Blue-Green to get established. Against Yellow Rush, you have lots of removal against the Ground Shakers to get great value on haste creatures. If you're running Bomb Slingers and Fire Bombs, you're killing demons, like, easy peasy. So I predicted a lot of players would either start with Yellow Rush or Red Combat to try and tackle players who run Blue-Green. And it looks like the Rush and the Combat players are the ones who are in the finals right now.
Yeah, the more everything changes, the more it stays the same, right? We had a full expansion of all these new cards, and the only new one in the Red Combat that we just saw was Captain. We didn't see any grappling hooks in there, even though we saw it earlier in the day. And then even the yellow that I Win Again was running, I think it was just Manta Rider was the only new card in there. And, we have this green-blue that is almost entirely in play because of new cards. And we have all of these old decks that are, still showing just how strong they are without really adding any big things to it.
From my personal tournament experience in other games, when expansions come out, if an expansion and a tournament are really close together, I've always tried to build decks with the expansion. I've always failed. Whereas the players who usually get to the top spots in those tournaments from the past have just stuck to decks from the previous expansion because they're tried and tested. Everyone knows they work. And you can technically...
There's so much experience of the ins and outs.
Exactly, yeah. You know, we've been with Faeria for a very long time now. We've seen Yellow Rush go through so many different iterations, from adapting to the meta, from the cards changing. We've seen Red go from Red Rush to Mid-Red when Cappuccino brought it to the Monthly Cup, and then we went to Red Control into Combat. So there's just been so many, like... changes for these decks, but fundamentally they stay the same. We still know how to play them, we still know how matchups line up and what cards we value. So when a new expansion does come, sometimes it is just better to stick to the tried and tested, stick to the classic decks, make a few alterations to the Oversky cards, because the players, well, they had a week to kind of figure things out. It was less than a week, wasn't it? It was like 5 days.
Yeah, really, especially for the newest island of cards, it was... I mean, really 4 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because you wouldn't have been able to test it all today. Tuesday was maybe a half day, depending on where you were in the world when the island was released. And yeah, those types of cards really didn't get as much testing as even some of the earlier islands would have.
Yeah, interesting to see how players, adapt to these tournaments, adapt to new expansions. And we're going to see some more games. We have 2 more matches for you today, guys. We have the 3rd place match, which will feature I Win Again, and the loser of Sweetie versus S of Dawn. And then the finals will conclude with Lou 90 versus the winner of either Sweetie and S of Dawn. So we're going to go to a quick break, see where that match is at, and we will be back very soon. Stay tuned for more Faeria action.
Discover the Adventure Pouch Oversky, featuring a first-of-its-kind co-op campaign. Team up with either friends or powerful Faeria characters and discover a ton of new content, including more than 30 new cards. Join now to experience the Emperor's daily challenges and reap exclusive rewards. Explore the Oversky and reap the rewards today.